What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined as always by my dad, Sean, and today, reactions to the classics. We're going to be taking a look at Bob Dylan's third record, The Times They Are A-Changin. This comes courtesy of one of our Bob Dylan super fans in the community, Sean. As always, Sean, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
Really enjoy going through Dylan's vastly different periods in his musical development, and this was a treat. We've done the Freewheelin Bob Dylan before, and we're keeping the train rolling with his next folk-inspired record.
Yeah, it was his third studio album, released in 1964 by Columbia Records. His first album to consist of only original compositions, which I think you and I don't want to speak for you, think he's the greatest songwriter of all time.
Yeah.
If not, he's in that discussion of a handful of them. Much more sparsely arranged, very heavy themes, which a lot of people didn't like, that it was just all heavy. Racism, poverty, social change. Went to 20 in the US, going gold, number 4 in the UK. We've talked about this before. Bob's albums never really did sell well in the US for as famous and as acclaimed as he is. They just never really sold a ton, so he was happy with the 20 in the US. Some feel two of his best songs, Percy's Song and Lay Down Your Weary Tune, were left off. Trey, we are going to start this thing off about as well as you can start anything off with the title track, The Times They Are A-Changin. Was not ever even released as a single in the US, but it's number 59 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 Songs of All Time.
Yeah, and this and With God on Our Side, because we've done a song reaction, were the only two songs of on this record I was familiar with, and I mean, what a fantastic tune, a beautiful melody, just such a powerful lyrics, so much packed into just a few short minutes. I especially enjoyed the line, "Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand," though at the time was of course written in regards to the civil rights movement. I think this is a timeless song that you can really put into any situation where a changing of the guard, so to speak, is occurring.
Yeah, and he said he wrote it deliberately as an anthem type song for social change. He said, "I wanted to write a big song with short, concise verses that piled up on each other in a hypnotic way. Civil rights movement, the folk music movement were pretty close for a while and allied together at that time." Obviously, great lyrics. His handwritten lyrics for this sold in 2010 for $422,000. Man, Trey, I wish I had some disposable change. You could really own some cool stuff, although I don't think I could ever see myself doing that. But wow, what a fantastic song. Yeah,
just beautiful. One of the best ways you could start a record, and then we'll keep moving on to track number 2, which is a really enthralling story.
It is, man.
Ballad of Hollis Brown. This one, Bob really is a bit more gritty, I guess you'd say. He describes the poverty of this guy, Hollis Brown. He's married, there's 5 children, and stuff is not going his way in life.
No, at every turn in the song, something goes wrong, something goes wrong. This is actually supposed to be on the previous album, on the Freewheelin Bob Dylan, and was put on this instead. It ends in quite the way. He spends his last money on the shotgun shells.
7 shotgun shells, man.
And there's 7 of them, and I was like enthralled by the story, as you said, and then when it ended that way, I was like, all right, man, this is definitely a heavy album.
Oh, absolutely. And at the end, you know, he knows that 7 more were just born, essentially to replace the 7 people that have died. And almost, I think you can view it as the cycle of poverty is probably just going to repeat itself with these new 7 people. Very powerful song here.
Yeah, and I think it was actually an example of, like, people sometimes think of a song's acoustic, then the instrumentation can't build any drama, but this song dispels that myth because the acoustic kept driving it forward and building that drama up.
And next up, we got With God on Our Side, the longest tune on this record, at over 7 minutes long. If you'd like to really see us dive into this tune, we actually did a song reaction to it about a month ago. One of our favorite ones I think we've done, just because there's so much to discuss here and so much that Dylan unpacks in these verses. And I think really the crux of his argument is probably the way you're brought up can shape who you think your enemies are, so to speak. I think that's one of the main themes of this tune. And, you know, just a lot of thought-provoking lyricism in here. He breaks down a bunch of the wars.
And yeah, I mean, I think the overarching theme he was getting at, for us that live in America, like you and I do, is that, you can justify anything, including wars, if God is on our side. And so he breaks down all these different situations. It's fine if God is on our side.
Dropping the nuke, doing this or that.
Now the Germans
Indian
are our
land.
friends, so now they're on our side. And you know, this was 1964, so he probably wrote it in 1963. Here we sit right now, we're recording this in 2020, and nothing's changed, because I see in this country, I love this country, but I see people justifying doing whatever we want because God is on our side. You and I are both Christians. There's no mention of the United States of America in the Bible. That's kind of fool's gold. God is on the side of his, not a country. So I really, really like this song, not only on this album, but in his whole catalog, because I think the lyrics are absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely, man. I really dug this one. And then we go on to a shorter and sweeter song compared to that. With,
yeah, I mean, I think anything is compared to that.
With One Too Many Mornings.
And he's said to have written this about the ending of his relationship with Susie Rotolo and the start of his relationship with Joan Baez. There's a great line in there, and I'm one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind. It's only a little over 2.5 minutes long, Trey. So it's an interesting arrangement to go from 7 minutes to 2.5 minutes, but it really does work for me.
Absolutely. The melody is just on point here.
Totally chill.
Yeah, I got some touching harmonica playing. I mean, there's really only three things in this entire record. You got the acoustic guitar, the harmonica, and just Bob's voice. So you know, it is very, I guess, bare bones, so to speak, but it works here even across 10 songs. And I enjoyed the line he says quite poetically, "And the silent night will shatter from the sounds inside my mind." How many times have you been trying to go to sleep and then your mind starts racing?
All the time, brother.
I couldn't put that in the way Bob said it, but truly a beautiful tune. And then we go on to the end of side A here. North
Country Blues. And this one tells the story of a mining company outsourcing their operations to another country, which it's interesting he's writing about this in 1964, since this has happened so much over the last 25 years in this country. It's the first song he wrote from a woman's point of view. A lot of people think it's a commentary on Hibbing, Minnesota, where he's from, because there's a bunch of mines there, which, guys, if you live in Minnesota, you're like, this guy's an idiot. But I had no idea there were mines in Minnesota, so I thought that was pretty...
Not well versed on Minnesota, but the song is interesting because it starts off discussing some of the trials, and you don't know who exactly this is, and then she mentions that her husband is a miner, and then it kind of all...
And her father and her brother, and it just ties in.
She had a lot of hardship with her father and brother dying, and then after the mines, downfall happened, and her husband left her with her children, and now she's kind of out on her own there. I thought Bob did a fantastic job here, kind of had that folky story tune, which I enjoyed. It had some haggard vocals, and the melody wasn't maybe as good as the previous tune.
Yeah, I loved the lyrics. I didn't love the song. The song was fine. It's not a bad song, but the lyrics are first rate.
Very, very solid. And then we'll move on now to the B-side, to number 6, Only a Pawn in Their Game.
And this one's about the assassination of civil rights activist Medgar Evers in Mississippi in 1963. The lyrics attribute blame for the killing and other racial violence to the rich white politicians and authorities who manipulated poor whites into directing their anger towards the blacks. They're pulling the purse strings, so to speak, saying this is your enemy, when in all reality, the rich person who's pulling your strings is really your enemy. But Trey, it's a tried and true thing. It's been done from mankind's start until right now. The guy in authority tries to play people against each other while he sits back and gets rich or powerful or both.
Absolutely. I really just enjoyed the metaphors and all the descriptive lyrics that Bob uses here. Some of his best rhyme schemes in his entire catalog are found in this song. And another one that really makes you think. I mean, just as an example here, speaking of Evers' murderer, he says, "But when the shadowy sun sets on the one that fired the gun, he'll see by his grave on the stone that remains, carved next to his name, his epitaph plain, only a pawn in their game." I mean, that's just one example of many great...
there's also when they lowered him down as a king.
Evers discovers himself.
Yeah,
and
because it was only a pawn in their game. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Just a great tune, one of my favorites. Then we go a little bit lighter affair to a love song. There's not too many of those on this record, but we got Boots of Spanish Leather here. And this one's I thought was interesting because the first 6 verses, there's 9 verses, they switch off from the male and female perspective. His girl's going away.
His girl's going away, and do you want me to send you anything? He goes, no, I just want you. And this goes back and forth. And at the very end, I guess Bob figures out, she ain't probably coming back. I might as well get something out of this. So send me some boots of Spanish leather.
Yeah, he figures out as the last 3 verses are just from his perspective, like, oh man, I guess she really ain't coming back.
She ain't buying this. All I want's you. I don't want anything else.
And it was interesting in the start of the song. He said, "Oh, I don't give me anything. The best thing can just be you and your love." And then at the end, he's all like, "You know what? How about you just give me some boots of Spanish leather," which I think maybe symbolizes the fact that, oh, her boots, she walked away and she left him. That's just my interpretation.
That's pretty good.
I dug it, man.
Yeah, that takes us to When the Ship Comes In. And Joan Baez actually said this song was about her and Bob checking into a hotel, and they wouldn't let Bob check in because he wasn't really famous yet, and
it's a bit haggard.
A little bit haggard, that's the word for it. And Joan vouched for him, and so he was able to... The hotel clerk checked him in, and so it's kind of writing about, some more theme of kind of what we have on here, the powers that be and that sort of stuff. And it was interesting to me, he performed this song at Live Aid in 1985, that he thought that highly of it to perform this song was just surprising to me.
Yeah, exactly. I really think in the song, talking about a ship coming in, I think it just symbolizes coming to topple a system, topple oppression, and so from that, I thought it was really solid. Not like a top tier song in my opinion on this record, but that's a pretty high bar to take, and it has some biblical allusions in there as well, mentioning that they're gonna be toppled like Goliath.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we get to another real life type of tune here, The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll.
And this one gives a factual account of a 51-year-old barmaid. That's who Hattie Carroll was. And a 24-year-old guy, Charles County, Maryland, comes from a rich tobacco family. Billy Zantzinger comes into this bar. He's already drunk. He's got a 25-cent toy cane. Racism is rampant at this time. Everything's still segregated. He orders a drink. She doesn't bring it to him in the time manner that he wants. When she brings him the drink, he hits her on the shoulder and in the head with this toy cane, which obviously had to be hard because she ends up dying.
Yeah, about 8 hours later.
He's charged with murder. And he gets, and they were saying, basically his defense was he was so drunk, he didn't know what he was doing. He gets 6 months. 6 months in jail.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. This is a song that I think is of great historical significance, where you can kind of remember stuff that happened, a story that you don't want to forget. And this occurred near the same time the old Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech.
Yes.
And legend has it Dylan was coming back from that. He got a newspaper article that detailed this out, man. And there are a couple inaccuracies in here from Bob's side of things. Some argue that the cane itself isn't what at the end of the day killed her. Some other accounts from people that were there said that it was probably more attributed to Zantzinger's verbal abuse of her, which I would argue is worse than just being hit with the cane. So in any case, I think that the moral of the story stands to really highlight the times that were so rampant and volatile at that time, and how something like this could happen. A woman could be murdered, and a guy could just get 6 months, and he's out and good to go half a year later. So
yeah, and it's something I didn't see in any of the research. I never seen anybody point this out, but for Bob, for a white man in 1964 to have the courage to write this story, he's going to alienate a certain amount of his fan base by even writing and recording something like this. So Not that Bob ever shied away, in my opinion, of anything that was controversial. The man spoke his mind, but I can see why he was the voice of a generation, especially during this period in his life.
Oh, absolutely. And Zanzinger was later quoted for saying that Dylan is a no-account son of a bitch. He's just like a scumbag of the earth. I should have sued him and put him in jail. The song is a total lie. Even if there was a couple stretches of the truth by Bob here, I mean, Billy, you can't deny the fact of what happened, and at the end of the day, Dylan had the ability to write about whatever he wanted to write
exactly.
about.
We're listening to it in 2020, so there you go. So that's going to take us to the final track, Restless Farewell.
And this really did have a sense of almost... Bob sounded a little down in the dumps, depressed.
Yeah, he
did. The melody was taken from parts of it, at least, were inspired by a Scottish song from the 1700s.
Yes.
And it did almost sound a little bit familiar. Maybe I've heard it, and it's been, interpoled by a lot of other stuff. But I thought that the melody was fantastic. Some themes here I see from Bob is a desire to kind of press on against the junk thrown his way by maybe false rumors in the media, lost love, and even his own mind.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it was middle of the road as far as a song. Once again, I mean, I'm a broken record, no pun intended. The lyrics are fantastic.
Some of the best ending lines you'll have on the record.
He is just flat out, in a zone right now at this point in his career.
Yeah, his last line, "I'll make my stand and remain as I am and bid farewell and not give a damn." I love that. Some of my favorite Bob lines are right there. And then that'll take us to our favorite tracks. For me, it's going to be, of course, the title track. Absolutely fantastic. With God on Our Side. I also really enjoyed Boots of Spanish Leather and Only a Pawn in Their Game.
Yeah, I'll go with the title track, With God on Our Side and Only a Pawn in Their Game. That brings us to our overall score. 10 songs. Some of them absolutely outstanding. None of them bad. For me, it's going to be an 8.75.
Man, you're stealing my grade. I'm right there with you. An 8.75. I thought this was...
I was almost a 9. I went back and forth.
And I thought this was an absolutely fantastic record. I really enjoy Bob's folk period here.
I do too, man.
And the thing with Bob is... your mileage might vary. You might, a lot of people, their favorite is, of course, the Electric Trilogy. That is, of course, coming up soon after this record in the mid-'60s. And then you have...
Greatest 14-month recording span ever, those 3 albums.
And then, of course, you got... he did his gospel period. He kind of had his little resurgence working with Knopfler in the 80s. And then even in the 90s with some of his acclaimed work there as well. And as we sit here recording this, he's about a month away from coming out.
A new album, man.
Yeah, so just so prolific in his career, and this still holds up today, and I really enjoyed it. Shout out to Sean for suggesting this one, man. Let us know what you think of this record down in the comments section below. As always, Dad, appreciate
always enjoy the research on the Dylan stuff, man. Always a lot of fun.
And if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that big thumbs up button. That helps us out as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Happy listening, and we will see ya.